It was 7:26 on a Wednesday. I was rinsing a spoon at my mother's sink, counting the slow taps of the faucet on the stainless steel basin like they could hold the day together. That's when I realized the velvet box wasn't in the drawer where it always lived, tucked under the rubber bands and expired coupons, right where she'd trained all of us to check for small things that mattered. The drawer caught on the wood the way it always did near the back. I reached farther, fingertips scraping the gritty bottom, came up with paper clips and a button that didn't match any shirt I could remember. No box. The drawer smelled like lemon oil and, faintly, Chanel No. 5, old perfume that clung to everything she'd ever owned. I turned to the counter and looked at the heat ring my coffee made, stalling, even though I knew why I had opened the drawer in the first place. Hospice had called to say they'd upped her morphine. Ruth Hart, my mother, hadn't worn jewelry in weeks. The necklaces, the rings, the cameo brooch from her mother. They'd all been in that box since March, since her fingers started swelling. I checked the bread box because my mother hid everything in doubles, the thing you wanted and a decoy thing you were supposed to find first. Bread box, empty except for a crust that was stiff as a coaster. Then the laundry room cabinet where she kept spare light bulbs and the good scissors no one was allowed to use on paper. I was half talking to myself like my father used to do when he couldn't find his keys. "Come on, Ruth. Where'd you put it?" It wasn't the bread box or the light bulb cabinet or behind the row of soups with the labels facing out like a small pantry parade. When I opened the closet off the hall, the smell was winter, wool and cedar. I looked up to the shelf where she kept shoeboxes labeled in her neat, slanted writing. Winter hats, taxes, Jordan baby clothes. My name is Ethan, but when I was born, my mother considered Jordan for about 3 hours and never got rid of the box. That was my mother. When she kept something, it stayed kept. "Looking early?" a voice said from behind me. Leah's voice, my sister's voice. It always sounded like she was entering a room she already owned. I turned and bumped my shoulder against a hanger, which swung and ticked against a thinner wire hanger. I hate that sound. Leah stood in the hall with her tote bag dug into the crook of her elbow, grocery store roses peeking out the top. The petals were too red for our house. She was winded from the stairs, 2 flights because the elevator hadn't worked since April, and her hair was pinned back with a barrette I recognized from high school. It was the kind of detail that made me want to be gentle, and the kind of detail that made me swear into my coffee later. "I brought flowers," she said, holding them up like proof she was a good person. "You always forget the vase is under the sink." "Where is it?" I said. "Where's what?" she said, but it wasn't a question. She watched my eyes go past her shoulder, toward the kitchen, toward the drawer. "You took it," I said. My voice came out flat. There wasn't room in me for anything else. "I picked up some of Mom's things," she said, "so they wouldn't get lost." I thought of the box. Blue velvet, the nap worn thin on one corner where it rubbed the drawer divider. The hinges squeaked. Inside, the cameo brooch with the tiny hairline crack running through the woman's throat, my grandmother's wedding ring, 2 pairs of pearl earrings, and that gold chain my mother called the good chain, as if the others were morally suspect. "Give it back," I said. "To you?" She tilted her head. Leah is 3 years younger than me, but she always squares her shoulders like someone who's a foot taller than I am and has the law in her pocket. She set the roses down on the hall table, and we both watched a petal nudge, loose and fall, slow as a tired leaf. "You didn't deserve any of it, Ethan," she said. "You weren't here." There was no way to keep the heat out of my face when she said that. I had been here. Not every day. Not like her. Not in the heroic, constant way the women on the hospice pamphlets smiled up from newsprint. But I was here on Fridays and Sundays, and Mondays after work, when I could get out early from the print shop, when I could ask my boss for the kind of mercy that accounted for mothers. I was the one who found the hospice nurse's card in the stack of community clinic flyers. I was the one who took the bus with Mom to the cardiologist in January because my car was in the shop and Leah's minivan had a check engine light that had been on so long it felt like a dashboard decoration. "You weren't here," Leah said again, sounding exhausted by my existence. "You were here to be seen here. You dropped off soup and left the lid on crooked." I didn't want to argue the shape of the lid. I wanted the box. I slid the closet door closed because the smell of cedar made the back of my throat hurt. I stepped past her into the kitchen. She followed so closely I felt the draft of her tote bag against my elbow. At the sink, the spoon was still there, half rinsed. It made a little whining sound as the water hit it. Leah pulled the vase out from under the sink, like she said, and filled it. She added the packet of plant food that always looks like a sugar sachet, but tastes like something different. Don't ask me how I know. "You can be angry," she said, "but don't be petty." "Where is it?" "I took Mom's jewelry out of the house," she said. "I put it somewhere safe." "Safe from me." I wiped my wet hand on a dish towel that was permanently damp because no one knew where to hang it that didn't turn into a ball. "It was safe in the drawer for 30 years, Leah. And now everyone has keys," she said. "You gave Owen one." "Owen is my son. He's 10. He loses things." She wasn't wrong. The copy I gave him had already been replaced twice, and he'd tied the newest one to a neon shoelace so it looked like a medal when he wore it. I pictured Owen standing in this kitchen, leaning his cheek into Grandma Ruth's fridge, waiting for me to find the popsicles. "Don't make him part of this," I wanted to say. Instead, "You said I didn't deserve any of it." She glanced at the window where the old blind was skewed so that one slat hung like a crooked tooth. The alley outside shivered with the compressor noise from the corner bar's cooler. Leah tightened her grip on the vase as if the glass could anchor her. "Mom and I made lists," she said finally. "You weren't there when she did that either. She wanted me to take care of her jewelry." "She also told me she wanted Owen to have the cameo when he was older," I said. "She said, he's sentimental, like you." Leah smiled in a way that wasn't a smile. "Mom said things like that when she had visitors," she said. "She wanted everyone to feel remembered. I know dementia is a thief who steals your mother's handwriting and leaves a stranger who repeats the news and thinks it's new. But Mom was steadier than that, at least some days. Some mornings, she would take the brooch out and polish the cameo with a cloth, telling me again how her mother wore it in a photograph that hung in a house I never saw. She'd say, "It's not worth much, Ethan. It's just ours." "Where is it?" I said again, because we were circling and I hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night in a week. "In my safe," she said. "You don't have a safe," I said automatically. "I do now," she said. "Tom installed it." Tom, my brother-in-law who knows a little about everything because his job is selling tools to men more patient than he is. Tom who says, "You just gotta put your back into it," about things that require permission slips and city permits. Tom who once cut his thumb on a mandolin and said, into the dish towel, "It's not so bad," in a voice so high I had to leave the room to laugh. "You came in here and took it," I said. "When did you do that?" She leaned the vase onto the counter gently, like it might bruise. "Monday," she said. "After the nurse left. Mom was sleeping. I was here Monday afternoon." "You left," she said. "You had to get back to work." I did. The shop had a rush job for a local realtor, those postcards that pretend to be handwritten. I left Mom watching a Detroit Tigers game muted on the TV, Leah showing me a notebook with a list of medications timed to the hour so that nobody could accuse her of missing any. She'd written everything in black pen and underlined mealtimes in green because she'd decided green ink meant food in her mind. And if you said that out loud, she smiled, like you'd found a shortcut. I picked up my phone from the table where I'd put its screen down so I wouldn't watch the time. There were 3 unread messages from the print shop. Can you approve the proof? Also, where's the file for the bar menus? And, is your mom okay? I scrolled past them and typed to Leah, right there with Leah standing 2 feet away. Where's the jewelry? I watched the typing bubbles appear on her phone in her hand. We looked up at the same time. Do you hear yourself? She said, this time almost soft. You're texting me because you can't talk to me. I'm talking now, I said. My voice sounded scraped, like a fork. No, I won't say it like that, like a bad violin. I'm not giving you the box, she said. I'm not giving it to Owen. I'm not giving it to anyone. You can be angry, but I'm not a thief. You came into the house, I said. You took something that isn't yours. Whose is it? She said. Whose, exactly? I thought of the will that wasn't done, because Mom kept saying, we'll get to it, like death was a kind of appointment she could postpone with stubbornness and a good cardigan. I had a PDF the lawyer sent with the words, draft across the top, like a watermark of our incompetence. Leah and I had talked about it, and every time we talked, usually in the Target parking lot for some reason, one of us would say, soon, and then we'd compare calendars like amateur meteorologists predicting a storm that already started. Leah took the roses out of their plastic sleeve and snipped the ends with the good scissors. They made a clean, soft crunch. The water looked cloudy with plant food. Make the call, she said. If you feel that strongly, call the lawyer and tell him you think your sister is stealing. I didn't say stealing, I said, though I had said it to myself as I walked up the stairs, as I put the key into the lock, as I found the drawer empty and the lemon oil smell arguing with winter wool in the hall. I didn't want to call her a thief. I wanted her to be the version of herself from 3 summers ago when she called me crying from the lake because Owen had caught his first fish and she didn't know what to say to me that wouldn't sound like a tease. The hospice nurse, Angela, came by at 9. She was one of those people who can make 3 syllables out of hun without making you mad about it. She checked Mom's mouth, her breathing. She asked if Mom had been complaining of throat pain. I said no, and Leah said yes, which is one of those tiny, stupid family details that can make a morning feel like a court case. Angela adjusted the morphine pump and wrote in a chart with a pen that had a flower taped to the end of it. She had a new tattoo, a small line drawing of a fern at her wrist. I watched her write the date, watched the numbers go down clean and even and real. I wanted my life to be like ink and paper, nothing too messy to erase, nothing more complicated than a straight line. Angela asked about the necklace again. Mom kept reaching for it even when she slept. We'll put something soft there, Angela said, tucking a folded tissue beneath Mom's collarbone. Sometimes the habit just wants a place to land. After she left, I opened the blinds in the bedroom. The light through the street trees made a fake forest on the carpet. Mom's breathing sounded like someone slowly turning pages in a warm room. Leah stood at the foot of the bed with her arms crossed. When she was a kid and she stood like that, my mother would say, "Don't guard your heart," and Leah would unfold like a reluctant napkin. Now, her arms stayed folded. "I'm bringing the box back when it's time," she said, not quite looking at me. "When is that?" "When she's gone," Leah said, and her voice stumbled just once. The afternoon slid into itself. Laundry in the machine that needed second runs because the towels smelled like a closed house. A neighbor from down the hall knocking and leaving a grocery bag of lemons she didn't want to see rot on her counter. A voicemail from my boss, Marcus, saying, "Don't worry about today," in a way that made me worry about next week. I walked to the corner for coffee and bought Leah one too. She didn't drink it. It sat on the counter until the ring it made collected dust. Owen texted from school at 2:16. "Dad, can I go to Liam's after?" I texted back, "Okay, but home by 6. He sent a thumbs up. He sent a picture of a plastic dinosaur wearing a paper hat he'd made in art. I stared at it longer than it deserved. At 4, the social worker came. She asked us about advanced directives, like we were on a quiz show, and also like we had all the time in the world. I looked at the paperwork. Leah looked at me. The forms wanted check marks and initials. I thought of the box again, stupidly, like a little ship I could set to sail with all my guilt packed inside it. I thought of Leah parking on Monday, a half day from her job at the library, a job she treats like a presence in the town keeps it honest, and walking up the stairs with that tote bag and the secret that felt like it was already mine. We got through the forms. The social worker said we were doing better than most siblings she saw, which felt like someone praising 2 people at a crosswalk for not getting hit by a car. After she left, Leah went into the bathroom and closed the door. I took the trash down. The alley smelled like heat even though it wasn't hot. A guy I didn't know was fixing the lid on a dumpster and telling his own story to his own person on a phone. Something about a deposit that didn't clear. I stood there longer than I needed to, pretending to knot the bag tighter. When I came back up, Leah was in the living room, staring at a framed photo on the bookshelf. It was the kind of photo you only get on nights. You don't expect to remember. Mom at the kitchen table wearing her bathrobe over jeans, laughing, her hand on a deck of cards as if she'd been caught cheating. Leah and I are in the background, arguing about a burnt batch of brownies. You can see the corner of the velvet box at the edge of the frame, because Mom always left it out on Friday when she wore the brooch to bingo like it was church. "Do you remember when Grandma gave the ring to Mom?" Leah said. I did. I was 8. The old house smelled like cabbage and wool. Grandma had hands like paper and a voice like rust. She took the ring off with a sigh and said, "It's yours, Ruth." Mom didn't put it on. She held it like a small, bright mistake. After Grandma died, we all found out the ring wasn't worth much, that the gold was soft and the diamonds were scrappy little shards of glass and hope. It didn't matter. Mom wore it when she cooked meatloaf. She wore it when she paid bills. She wore it when she argued with my father in the driveway at night in a conversation I could only hear as shapes through my bedroom window. She told me I'd know what to do with it, Leah said. She said, "You're good at keeping things." "You are," I said, because Leah remembers dates and shoe sizes and the fact that I get headaches if I drink red wine. She keeps glue sticks where you need them and extra batteries that never leak. She keeps promises she should have broken a long time ago. "I also know this isn't about the ring," she said, finally turning to me. "It's about the way you come into a room and decide what the story is." "That's rich," I said. "You took the box." "Because if I didn't, you would," she said. I wanted to say 100 things that wouldn't make either of us better. Instead, I picked up the roses and moved them to the table by the window and changed the water even though it didn't need it. The stems squeaked against the glass. I thought about the safe she said she had. I thought about calling Tom, hearing him try to turn this into a hardware problem, a question of studs and anchors and whether the wall could hold. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. "Hey, sorry, client came in. They're pushing back on the handwritten font. Can you stop by tomorrow?" I stared at the text until it blurred. Then another from an unknown number. "This is Karen from Riverton Community Bank. We have your message about the safe deposit. Are you available to come in Thursday morning?" I realized, with a dull little jolt, that I had called the bank on Monday after I saw Leah's car in the lot and before I got upstairs, some small part of me already planning to make Mom's jewelry the bank's problem and not ours. The account was in my mother's name with me as co-signer, but the box wasn't listed. I had wanted to know whether she still had the one she kept after my father left in '97. I'd pictured opening a tiny, airless vault and finding that blue velvet inside like an apology from time. "Who was that?" Leah said. "The bank," I said. "You called them before you talked to me." I could lie, but the truth felt like the only currency Leah would accept from me. "Yes," I said. She sat down hard in the chair Mom always used for writing grocery lists, the one that groaned even under my mother's small weight. "You really don't think I can be trusted?" she said. I sat across from her. The wood table had grooves from a time Dad tried to fix a hinge without a mat. The roses looked like they were listening. "I don't trust myself," I said. "Is that better?" It got quiet enough that I heard the neighbors' late news through the wall. A newscaster read a story about a city council meeting like he was reciting a weather report from someone else's town. Leah rubbed the corner of the table with her thumb as if she could polish the wood shiny again. "I hate this," she said, and there was nothing performance about the way she said it, nothing for show. A text from Owen. "Home now. Can I have pizza?" I wrote back, "Yes. Save me 2 slices." He sent a picture of a slice with a bite taken out and captioned it, "1", which made me laugh even though nothing about the day wanted laughter. At 9, I walked Leah down to the street. She insisted on carrying the tote bag herself, and I didn't argue because it was a hill I didn't want to die on. The streetlights made everything look like it was waiting for a photograph. At her car, she hugged me the way you hug someone you used to know the choreography for. Over her shoulder, I could see Tom's face on her dashboard in a photo clipped to the vents, his paw resting on a dog's head. Tom's dog has a name that is a color, blue or red, I can never remember. "You're angry now," she said. "I can take it, but don't make me the villain because I did the part nobody wants." "I did parts," I said, immediately ashamed of how childish it came out. "I know," she said. "I know you did. This isn't a scoreboard." "It feels like one," I said. She got in the car. She rolled the window down. "Call the bank," she said, which I had already done, and it felt like a dare and a blessing. Then she drove off, the taillights cutting the block in 2. Back upstairs, I sat with Mom while she slept. Her breaths were spaced, shallow. I watched the little rise and fall of the blanket and counted to 30 between sips of water because it gave my hands a job. The cameo wasn't on her chest. My hand went to my own throat like I could borrow the feeling for her. The next morning, I woke on the couch to a notification chime, the kind that sounds too cheerful for bank business. Karen had followed up. "We can see you at 9:30, Mr. Hart. Bring identification and any relevant paperwork." I texted Leah. "Going to the bank." She didn't respond. I called Marcus and told him I couldn't come in until the afternoon. He used his considerate voice, the one that makes you wonder what's going to break later. I fed Mom applesauce with the little plastic spoon Angela left on the nightstand. Most of it ended up back in the bowl. I changed her so slowly I talked to her about it, even though her eyes stayed closed. I caught my face in the mirror over the dresser, beard too long, hair matted in the back. I looked like someone who lived in the before photo. By 9:10, I was on the bus because the car had started making a grinding sound last month and I didn't trust it downtown. The bus smelled like coffee and a faint hint of bleach that made me think of the gym. I sat near the back and watched Riverton shift from small houses to 2-story brick buildings with dentist offices over nail salons. the city's attempt at a fountain burbling in a way that always made me think of a stomachache. I had the folder with the draft will in my bag, along with Mom's ID, my ID, and a utility bill with both our names that I printed like a teenage boy trying to sneak into a movie. My phone buzzed on my thigh twice, once from Owen asking if he could bring a Lego figure to school for show and tell tomorrow, and once from a number I didn't know. I didn't open either. At the bank, the door handles were heavy brass that made you feel important and tired. Karen met me in the lobby, her hand cool and damp. She looked like a kindergarten teacher who got promoted against her will. Pleasant blouse, friendly necklace, eyes that said she'd heard everything and chosen not to hold any of it against us. "Let's go to my office," she said. "Did you find the box number?" "That's the thing," I said, sitting as the chair sighed around me. "I'm not sure there is one. I think there used to be. I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing something we're supposed to have." She nodded like the problem was ordinary. "I can check if your mother has an active box," she said, fingers landing on her keyboard with the confidence of someone who knows which keys actually do something. She typed Ruth's name, our address, the last four of her social. She squinted at the screen like the answer might be hiding on the margins. "I see an account with you as co-signer," she said, "but no safe deposit box attached to this branch in the last 10 years. It's possible she had one previously at another location." I thought of a different bank, a merger, a new logo over an old building with stubborn bones. "There used to be a branch in Lakeview," I said. "It closed in 24, she said. "Those records are in storage. I can request them." "Please," I said. My hands had started doing a little dance on the folder. I made them stop. She took down the request details, printed me a copy like she'd taught the printer to behave just for me. "It can take a few business days," she said. My phone lit on the table between us. "Leah, don't do this." I didn't write back. Karen folded her hands and tilted her head in a way that suggested empathy without any medical liabilities. "Is there anything specific you're looking for?" she said gently. "My mother's jewelry," I said. "My sister says she's safeguarding it." She used that word. "That can be a challenging family thing," Karen said. "We see it a lot." "It sounds like I'm making a scene over small things," I said, "but they aren't small to me." "They aren't small," she said. Her office had a corkboard with photographs of what looked like a walkathon, all the faces red with a certain kind of community enthusiasm that makes my chest ache. I pictured Leah at one of those, handing out paper cups and knowing where the extra safety pins were. I pictured her putting the jewelry in a safe behind a painting like a TV show, even though Tom would mount it in a closet, talk about lag bolts and studs, measure twice and drill once. Karen printed another sheet and slid it across the table, a list of what documents I'd need if, when, my mother died and I had to do things that sounded like math. She said the words executor and death certificate and probate in a cadence that almost made them sound like groceries you could pick up without consequence. I thanked her for talking to me like a person and not a transaction. We scheduled a tentative follow-up. As I stood to go, I realized I had been clenching my jaw hard enough to make my ears ache. The bank lobby had that polite hush that makes you walk softer even if you aren't sure why. I was halfway to the door when I heard my name. "Ethan." I turned. Leah stood by the pen on a chain stand, her tote bag slung across her body like a sash. She was flushed, hair frizzed at the edges from the wind. She looked like she'd run, which is rare for her unless someone she loves is in danger or late. "What are you doing here?" I said. "You tell me," she said. She was breathing fast. People looked up with that bank look, the one that pretends not to listen. I came to ask about the safe deposit, I said. Why? She said. Why, if you trust me. I held up the folder like a foolish paper shield. Because I'm trying to make sure we're not missing anything, I said. Because I don't want to make the wrong choice and find out later we had a better one. You're making the wrong choice now, she said. You're making the wrong choice about me. Karen cleared her throat in a way that was almost friendly and almost warning. The security guard by the door shifted his weight like he'd been given an extra minute of a song he didn't like. Let's go outside, I said. Leah shook her head. You think I'm protecting the jewelry from you, she said. I'm protecting you from what happens when there's one thing left to fight about. We already have that, I said. We have this. She swallowed. Come with me, she said. I'll show you. What? I said. The safe, she said. I'll show you the box. Right now. We stood there, in the bank, while a woman in a blazer asked if someone could please unlock the coin machine. Leah's eyes were glassy but clear. My phone buzzed again, Angela's number this time, which triggered the automatic guilt and fear that start in the stomach and work out to the hands. I looked down at the screen. Angela. Everything okay there? Call when you can. Now, Leah said. Before we both say things, we can't walk back. I looked from the text to Leah, to the door, to the list of documents on the table behind Karen. Somewhere, a printer whirred and stopped, like a tired animal deciding whether to nap. I nodded. We walked out together. The door made that heavy sound again, the sound of something sealing you in or letting you go, depending on which side you stand on. The morning was brighter than I expected. Leah's car was pulled crooked at the curb, hazard lights tapping a small warning in the corner of my eye. We got in, and I realized I hadn't told Angela I was leaving the apartment. I shouldn't have left Mom alone more than half an hour, not with the way her breathing had been. 5 minutes, I said. Then I have to call the nurse. She's with Mom, Leah said, pulling into traffic like the rest of the world had gotten quiet. I asked her to sit for an hour in case you did something impulsive. I'm not impulsive, I said, and even I didn't believe it. Leah drove the way she always drives when she has decided on a destination. Blinkers early, turns crisp, a steady hum under her breath, like she's giving the day a tune to follow. We passed the Target, where we met in the parking lot, and spoke in half voices about legal forms. We passed the park where Owen learned to ride his bike on a Tuesday evening when I had forgotten my phone at home, and the absence of it made us both kinder. We turned onto Leah's street, the one with narrow lots and trees that never seemed to agree on when to drop their leaves. She pulled into the driveway of her blue house with the white trim that always needs painting. Tom's pickup was gone. A neighbor I didn't know was wrestling with a lawnmower that refused to cooperate. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and paper. Books everywhere. The hall table with a dish for keys. Leah walked straight to the bedroom she and Tom share and opened the closet. Clothes slid on plastic hangers with that soft kerchunk I remember from every apartment I ever moved into. She got on her knees and shuffled a storage bin with winter boots, another with camping gear they never use. She lifted a shallow box I recognized as the place for old tax returns. Here, she said, and pushed her fingers beneath the baseboard at the back of the closet. It lifted. My heart did something I didn't like. Behind it, a square of metal set into the wall, a keypad no bigger than a calculator. She punched 4 numbers, paused, then 2 more. A soft click. The safe opened like a slow mouth. She reached inside and pulled out the blue velvet, the nap rubbed thin. The box looked both exactly right and smaller than my mind had made it. She put it on her lap like a cat that could bite. Her hands shook a little. This is where it is, she said. This is where it stays until—" She didn't finish. She opened the box. The cameo glowed the way soft things glow in the right light. The wedding ring sat beside it, careful in its little cave. The pearls looked like they did in every photograph of our mother at Christmas, and on summer Sundays, a string of moons on plain days. Leah's breath made a small sound in her nose. I felt something unclench and then clench again immediately, because relief always has a twin. "Okay," I said, my voice somewhere near the carpet pile. "It's here." "It's here," she said, "and I'll bring it back, but not to the drawer." "Okay," I said again because there wasn't anything better. She set the box on the floor between us like a question we might answer or not. I reached out and touched the edge. The velvet felt tired against my fingertip, the way fabric does when it's done its job for a long time. I imagined Mom's thumb over the corner, rubbing, thinking, waiting for a ride to bingo, waiting for Dad to change his mind, waiting for Leah to call, waiting for me to come up the stairs and say, "Hey, Ma," like a teenager who forgot his backpack. The doorbell rang. It rang twice, quick, like whoever stood there didn't trust the first one had worked. Leah flinched, then looked at me, then looked at the safe. She closed the box gently, the hinge giving its familiar complaint. She slid the safe door shut and tapped the keypad, metal against metal. "Who is that?" I said. She stood and brushed her knees off. "Probably the appraiser," she said, and then her face reddened. "Tom's idea, to document everything. In case—" "In case what?" "In case you challenge the estate," she said, the words slanting. Something in me rose and fell, like the whole house had breathed once. The bell rang again. The neighbor's mower coughed alive. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't have to look to know it was Angela, or Marcus, or Owen, or the bank, or all of them. Leah walked toward the hall. I stayed where I was, one hand on the carpet, one hand on empty air where the box had been, as if I could feel the shape of it. I watched the safe's line disappear into the closet wall, not a secret so much as a fact we had to incorporate into our faces before we opened the door and made the next part of the day happen. "Do you mind if I come in?" he said, cheerful like a delivery driver who's on a streak. He stood on the porch with a clipboard and a canvas messenger bag, the kind that makes you think of maps and careful pens. Behind him, the neighbor's mower grumbled, stalled, then surrendered. Leah's hand stayed on the doorknob like she'd forgotten how to let go. "You're early," she said. "We said 10. "Traffic blessed me," he said. "I'm Nate." He didn't offer a last name. He peered past Leah into the hallway like a person trying to decide if a house smells like dogs. "Tom called. Said you wanted documentation for insurance, photos, descriptions. No valuations today unless you ask." His voice fit the bank, not our lives. I realized I was still in the bedroom doorway, knees dusty from the carpet, heart doing that uneven drummer thing. The safe was closed, the baseboard pressed back into place, the secret neat again. Nate clocked me and did the polite nod men do when they're not sure if you're another contractor or the guy who lives here. "I'm her brother," I said. "Got it," Nate said, writing nothing while pretending to write something. "We'll start in the living room." Leah looked at me like she needed permission, and also like she would not ask for it. 1 hour, she told him. "And no moving jewelry without me. Photos only." "Of course," he said. He stepped onto the runner like he'd been taught in some class to follow the path your host gives you. The bag made a soft thump at his hip when he walked, like it carried its own heartbeat. My phone buzzed in my pocket again. "Angela." I answered before my guilt could grow teeth. "Hey, I'm with Leah. She's okay," Angela said, saving me from the scramble. I'm with your mom in her room. She's resting. I put fresh cream on the pressure points. Eat something when you get back, okay? You're at the apartment? I said. Door was unlocked, notes were on the table, and I'm not a burglar, she said gently. I'll sit until you return. Thank you, I said, and tried to make those 2 words carry more than etiquette. Nate sat up in the living room like he'd done this in 100 homes. He took out a camera with a lens that clicked into place with an expensive sound, a portable light, a gray card he held up like a magician's trick without the flourish. We'll do wide shots first, he said, then detail. I'll label each image. Anything you want me to skip, say the word. Skip the kids' pictures, Leah said automatically. Her voice was back to librarian calm, the register that told 3rd graders to whisper without making them afraid of books. Always, Nate said. He aimed the lens at the bookcase. The shutter patted the air. Nice piece, he added, like he was telling the weather there was nothing to worry about. I stood and watched with the uselessness of a man who doesn't know which part of the day he's damaging more by choosing it. The living room was Leah's, not my mother's. Still, the eye roves, framed watercolor of a bridge painted by a friend, the woven throw our aunt sent at Christmas the year the furnace died, the bowl by the TV full of remote controls and coins that always look like they're waiting for a ritual. Nate moved soft, the way some people learn to do when they spend their days in other people's rooms. You okay? Leah said quietly to me while Nate photographed a lamp like it had a resume. No, I said, but I'm here. The words were not clever, which made them feel honest. She nodded toward the kitchen. Coffee, she said. It wasn't a question. We walked around Nate the way you walk around a sleeping dog, wide, with respect. Leah's kitchen is the kind of clean that wants to be praised without having to beg for it. She turned the kettle on. The counter had a line where the toaster lives, a ghost of crumbs that no one truly banishes. I watched steam push against the silver mouth of the kettle. My hands, traitors, opened and closed as if they expected a different job. You asked Angela to sit, I said. I did, Leah said. You didn't answer my text. I was talking to the bank, I said, and then I caught the defensive tilt in my voice and swallowed it back. Thank you for calling her. I wasn't sure if you'd go, she said, opening the cupboard for mugs that didn't match. For the box, or if you'd think it was me playing a card. I would have gone, I said, but I would have thought about the card. She set a mug in front of me. It said, "Books are my love language." Leah pressed a smile she didn't feel. It's ugly, she said, but it holds heat. We stood with the kettle between us like a little factory. The quiet in the house wasn't heavy. It was ready. In the living room, the shutter sounded again, a small punctuation mark. I hated that you called the bank, Leah said, not looking up. It made me picture the version of me in your head, the one with grabby hands. I called before I saw the drawer, I said. I called because I know myself and because I didn't want to know you through a fight. The bank was a rule book. You like those. She nodded, half a shrug. I like when people agree about the names of things, she said. It makes the other parts easier. We poured the water. The kettle sighed down like it had been holding its breath for too long. I wrapped both hands around the mug, even though it was too hot for that to be a good idea. The heat bit me. I welcomed it. Nate's camera punctuated the air again. Do you want me to include art? He called. Textiles? Textiles, Leah muttered, and her mouth did a small smile at the shape of the word. Yes, not the kids, not their rooms. Copy, he said. My phone lit up with a message from Owen. Can Grandma have pizza smell? He'd followed it with a picture of a slice, held up in front of his face like a mask. The image quality was terrible, too close, too bright. Everything about being 10 captured in pixels. I typed, "She can smell whatever you bring into the room. Just don't wake her." He sent a skull emoji, which I chose not to interpret. "Angela says Mom's resting," I told Leah. "She'll stay until I get back." "You still want to go back to the apartment," Leah said. "It wasn't a trap, just a map." "I do," I said. "I'll bring you lunch." She moved the sugar closer to me, like an apology that wouldn't embarrass either of us. We drank. Behind us, Nate was humming now, a tuneless thing people do when they're not sure how much space their body is allowed to take in someone else's house. "I didn't schedule Nate to provoke you," Leah said after a minute. "Tom wanted a record. If it were up to me, I'd take pictures with my phone and call it a day. But then later, someone would say the word chain of custody like they learned it on TV, and I would have to not bite someone." "Tom thinks like a lawsuit," I said. "He always has." "He thinks like a man who has seen families ruin each other over couches," she said. "The man sold garage door openers for 10 years. He knows petty." I couldn't help it. A laugh sneaked out. It startled both of us, bright and stupid and human. Leah let hers follow and shook her head like she was mad at the day for letting it happen. The camera clicks drew closer. Nate stepped into the doorway, respectful of thresholds. "Do you want kitchen items photographed?" he asked. "Cutlery, small appliances?" "Just the sentimental," Leah said. "The cookie tin with Mom's recipe cards, the rolling pin from Grandma, not the blender." "Copy," he said again, and retreated. I saw him pause by the family calendar pinned to the wall. He didn't photograph it, because he wasn't that kind of careless, but his eyes read the squares anyway. I saw my name once, a small block that said, "Ethan, pick up meds." Leah had written it in green. "You wrote my name," I said, stupidly, softly. "I write what needs doing," she said. "I write who's doing it." We didn't say more about lists. Some things, if you keep pushing on them, turn into arguments just to give themselves a place to live. When Nate finished the living room, he asked about the bedroom. Leah and I traded a look that said more than we'd ever do in front of a stranger. "No jewelry," she told him. "Nothing in drawers. Closet. Photos only. And you stand where I tell you to stand." "I like rules," Nate said without smiling. "They make my day shorter." He went down the hall. I could feel where the safe was from here, the way you can feel a missing tooth with your tongue. My hands remembered the velvet without touching it. Leah's shoulders squared. She walked after Nate, then turned back, halting me with a palm out like "Bae." She used to when we crossed streets as kids. "Stay," she said. Let me do this part." I did. The kitchen clock ticked the way cheap clocks do, louder than they have any right to. I dialed Angela. "I'm 10 minutes out." "Take 15, she said. "Your mother is quieter today. Her colors, you know." "I know," I said. The line held a breath for both of us. "Can you stay if I'm late?" "I can," she said, "but I'll text you if anything changes. You'll want to be there." I put the phone down and stared at the sugar granules on the counter. The seam in the laminate had gathered a dark line of coffee. I pressed my thumb into it and felt the ridge, the place where two things met, and decided to pretend they were one. Leah came back with Nate in tow. He gave a thumbs up like a pilot walking off a plane he didn't crash. "All set for today," he said. "I'll send a link for the files. You can add comments. If you want me to come back for valuations, I'll need another appointment with both of you present. Keeps me out of family group chats, you know." He said it lightly, but I could hear the bone beneath. He handed Leah a card and balanced the bag strap across his chest with a practiced hand. At the door, he paused. For what it's worth, most people wait too long to do this. You're not those people." Leah held the card like it might burn her. "Thanks," she said. The door closed behind him with that hollow, polite thud. Outside, the mower finally made peace with the yard. We stood in the entryway like two kids who broke a lamp and had to agree on a story. Leah leaned her head against the wall and closed her eyes. I don't want to become the person who knows where everything is because she's afraid of everyone. "You're not that person," I said. "You're the person who labels a bin winter hats because it's winter and we have heads." She huffed, then opened her eyes and pushed away from the wall. "You need to go back to Mom," she said. "I'll follow in a bit. I'm going to put this card in a place I won't lose until I lose it anyway." "Bring the box," I said, then winced at myself. I don't mean it like a demand. I mean, bring it when you're ready. "Soon," she said, "when it's time." "You said that yesterday," I said, because my mouth likes to wreck small truces. She didn't snap. She took a breath, and it had the tired patience of someone who is not keeping a scoreboard and knows that I am. "I did," she said, "and I meant it both times." We left together. The air outside had warmed in that late morning way that makes you think of 1 o'clock appointments and sandwiches eaten in cars. Leah locked the door, then checked it twice, then caught herself and forced her hand away with a grim little grin. "I'm trying to be a person," she said. "You are," I said. The drive back to my mother's apartment was a map I knew too well. Leah didn't turn the radio on. She drove one-handed, the other hand on her thigh, fingers tapping a rhythm I recognized from our childhood dinners when she counted the seconds between our father's jokes and our mother's replies. At a red light, she said, "I didn't tell Tom about the bank." "You didn't have to," I said. "He knows me." "That's what I'm worried about," she said. And that was the end of that road. We pulled up to Mom's building. The elevator still slept behind its out-of-order sign like a stubborn cat. We climbed the stairs. The hallway smelled like takeout and dust. I could hear the television in 2B playing an afternoon court show where everyone pretends to respect the process. Our door was ajar. Angela sat by the bed with the chart on her lap and her hand on the edge of the blanket where it could be mistaken for nothing but presence. "She stirred," Angela said when we walked in. "I told her you were bickering about something unimportant, and she made a face that said, 'As usual.'" Leah smiled without showing teeth. I walked to the bed. Mom's face had given up a little more stubbornness. Her skin had that soft translucence that makes you think of words like petal and then makes you ashamed of yourself for thinking of poetry, as if it were useful in this room. Her breath was shallower, but rhythmic. The tissue at her collarbone had stayed put. "Hey, Ma," I said. The 2 syllables carried more of me than any apology I could craft. "I brought stories." Leah sat in the chair on the other side, and, without conferring, we began. We told her the kind of news she liked, when news still mattered. Mrs. Duplessis' granddaughter won the spelling bee. The new clerk at the corner store started stacking the bread backwards, and it bothered no one but us. Owen could now whistle with his fingers, but only if nobody asked him to demonstrate. Angela stood, smoothed the sheet, and gave us each a look that said, "This is the part where you are better than your fear." "I'll be in the kitchen," she said. "Make noise if you need me." She left the door open. The kitchen made its small sounds, fridge cycling on, faucet ticking a little, the ghost of lemon from yesterday's wipe-down. Leah leaned forward, elbows on knees, and said, "Do you want the brooch, Mom? It's safe. It's here in town. We can put the cameo on your shirt. Just say the word." Mom didn't say anything. Her eyes tracked somewhere and then fell asleep again. I looked at Leah. She looked at me. We were holding a rope with both ends in the same hand and pretending it tugged toward different shores. "I dreamed about Dad last night," I said. The words surprised me out of my own mouth. He was standing at the grill in socks. He kept flipping hot dogs and none of them ever finished cooking. Leah made that huff again, the one that's not quite a laugh and not quite a sigh. "That tracks," she said. "Do you remember the year he tried to make lasagna and put the noodles in raw because someone told him they cook in the sauce?" "They did not," I said. "They did not," she agreed. We sat in the kind of stillness that could learn to be companionable if you let it. In that space, the phone on the nightstand woke up with a text. It was Mom's phone, rarely used now. The preview showed, "Unknown number. This is to inform you." The rest was cut off. I ignored it, the way you ignore a flake of paint on the windowsill. Leah reached across and pressed the phone dark with a tender thumb, like she was putting a baby to sleep. "Are you going to tell Tom I went to the bank?" I said. "I'm going to tell Tom you came with me to the safe," she said. "I'm going to tell him you touched the box and didn't try to take it. I'm going to tell him I think you and I are going to be okay, even if we do this clumsy." "I don't deserve the brooch," I said, and the sentence scraped something raw on the way out. "I want Owen to see it, that's all." "You'll show him," she said. "One day when your hands aren't shaking." "I'm not shaking," I said, and we both looked at my hand where it rested on the blanket, vibrating like a leaf on someone else's branch. Angela came back with a plate of crackers and a slyly proud expression, like she'd stolen them from a more serious room. "I texted your boss," she said to me. "He said take tomorrow too." "You texted Marcus," I said, startled. "You left his number on the fridge," she said, "with a note to call if the schedule changed. I am obeying the schedule." "You're a saint," I said. "I get paid," she said. "Saints never do." We ate 2 crackers each, like a ritual. Angela adjusted the oxygen, checked the line, wrote something neat in the chart. She left again, humming the same tune Nate had hummed, a coincidence my brain wanted to make into a message. The afternoon took on that stretched quality it gets when everyone is waiting for a knock that might be news or nothing. Leah dozed in the chair, chin to chest, one hand still on the edge of the bed, like she was tethered to our mother by touch. I texted Owen's mom to ask if she could keep him 1 more hour. She wrote, "Of course." He and Liam are making a fort out of failure, which I chose not to examine too closely. At 3, the building manager left a note under the door about trash pickup moving to Friday. I folded it neatly and set it on the counter as if my diligence could convince time to slow down. The phone stayed quiet for a while, like the city had agreed to let us have this shrunk little pocket of day. Then Leah's phone vibrated. She woke, blinked, looked at the screen. I watched her face change through 3 expressions I didn't recognize. "It's Tom," she said. "He's asking if we need him to bring anything. And he says he told Nate to bill him, not me." "That was decent," I said. "It was," she said, and typed back a thank you with more hearts than she would admit to on the record. At 4, Angela came in with eyes that were kinder than her words. "Your mom's breathing is changing," she said. "Do you want me to call the others?" "There are no others," Leah said quietly. "I'll stay," Angela said. "You don't have to do this part cleanly. The only people who ever do are lying to themselves." We moved our chairs closer. I took my mother's hand and realized I had been avoiding that because something about the feel of her knuckles always tells the truth. The cameo would have rested just there. In my head, I saw the blue velvet again and the way Leah's hands had trembled. I saw Tom deciding to be decent. I saw Owen, skull emoji, and pizza courage. I saw the bank paper on Karen's desk and the words that feel like cardboard until they're the only bridge you have. I saw a safe set into a wall, and the way a baseboard returns to its job after a secret is pushed behind it. "Hey, Ma," I said, steady, because that's how I wanted her last sound from me to feel. "We've got the jewelry. It's fine. Leah's got it. I'll show Owen the cameo when he's older and pretends not to care. We'll argue about it, and then we won't. You picked good kids, even when we're not the easiest to keep." Leah's breath hitched. She leaned in and kissed our mother's temple. "I'll wear the pearls to church," she whispered, and then laughed at herself because she doesn't go to church. "To the library. I'll wear them to the overdue book amnesty day and pretend it's a gala." Angela put a hand on each of our shoulders for a second, a benediction that didn't ask for anything back. The room settled. The city went on being itself beyond our window, rude and ordinary and alive. Somewhere in that soft hour between late afternoon and the certainty of dinner, Mom exhaled the way people exhale when they decide to tell the truth. She took another breath. She let it out. We watched and waited for the next one like we were listening for a bus 2 stops away. It didn't come. Angela checked what she had to check without making us look away. She nodded, small and sacred. Leah's fingers tightened around mine. My throat made a sound I didn't recognize and chose to accept. There was no cameo on her chest. There was a folded tissue where it would have been, an indentation in cotton that said habit, not treasure. Leah put her forehead against the sheet and stayed there. I sat back in the chair and tried to remember how to breathe in a way that didn't feel like an argument with the air. We didn't rush to call anyone. Angela told us we could have time. The building noise softened like it had been asked nicely. I stood and went to the window and watched a kid on a scooter cut the corner too, close, and catch himself with one foot, stumble, laugh, keep going. Leah stood and opened the drawer of the bedside table and took out a pen. She wrote the time on a sticky note and stuck it to the chart because some people need something written down to accept that it's real. "We should bring the box," I said, voice low because everything felt too loud. "Not to dress her, I know. Just here, in the room. For us." Leah nodded, eyes red but clear. "I'll go," she said. "If you'll stay." "I'll stay," I said. "And I'll call Owen." "Tell him what you always tell him," she said. "The version that lets him be 10. She grabbed her keys, looked at Angela. "Can I leave the door unlocked for 5 minutes?" "I'll sit right here," Angela said. "Go. Drive carefully." Leah squeezed my shoulder on her way out, the good kind of brief contact, the kind that says the argument is an old pet we'll feed later, but not today. The door side closed. The apartment hummed its small house music. I sat with my mother and the folded tissue and the breath that had left and was not coming back. I dialed Owen. When he answered, his voice was full of paper forts and victory. "Buddy," I said, and the word steadied me. "Grandma did her last sleep." He was quiet. "Like Penny," he said finally, referring to the hamster we buried in a shoebox with a popsicle stick cross that said Penny was small but brave. "Yeah," I said. "Like Penny." "Are you sad?" he asked. "I am," I said. "But also, I'm glad I was with her." "Can I come over?" he said. "We can tell her about the Lego fort." "In a little bit," I said. "A nurse is helping us do some things first. I'll come get you. We'll sit with her and you can tell her everything." "Okay," he said, and I could hear him trying the word on. "Can we get pizza after?" "We can," I said, and he said, "Cool," to the day the way only a kid can. I hung up. Angela handed me a glass of water without saying drink this, so I drank it. The hallway carried the sound of Leah's footsteps returning sooner than I expected. The door opened. She stood there with the box in her hands, not hidden in a bag, not disguised, just present. She walked into the room and set it on the dresser. We didn't open it. We didn't need to. We let it sit like a witness that wouldn't be called. Angela didn't touch the box. Neither did we. It sat on the dresser like a statement that didn't need to be read out loud. Leah pulled the quilt higher over Mom's shoulder, smoothing the puckered bits with the side of her hand, the way she used to smooth school posters when she was 12, and I was the human tape dispenser. "Who do we call first?" she asked, voice low, eyes on the stitches. The light from the window thinned across the carpet, turning every lint piece into a small planet. "Funeral home," Angela said from the doorway. Her tone had the steady warmth of someone explaining how to tie a knot you've already half tied. "If you don't have one, I can give you a list." "We have one," Leah said. "Gordon & Sons. Mom liked their receptionist." I found the business card on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a strawberry. The corner was bent. I dialed. A man with a voice like a church hallway answered. I gave him Mom's full name and the apartment address and the quiet truth that she was gone. He said he'd send 2 attendants within the hour, said we could take our time, said we wouldn't be rushed. He said, "We'll be gentle." And the relief that sentence gave me sat heavier than I expected. While we waited, the afternoon organized itself. Leah opened the windows an inch. Angela gathered the extra linens into a tidy bundle. I took the trash out because that was a thing my body could do without permission from my brain. The alley felt like the same alley as yesterday, which made me irrationally angry at everything that wasn't changed by today. A pigeon walked like a boss along the brick lip of the dumpster, head tick-tick-ticking. A neighbor I only know as the guy with the loud laugh was quiet for once. I stood there until a door shut 2 floors up and reminded me that other people had reasons to go back inside. Back in the bedroom, Angela asked if we wanted a lock of hair. The question came like a small boat sliding toward shore, simple, not to be ignored. Leah looked at me, and then at Mom, and then nodded. Angela used a clean pair of scissors from a sealed packet and took a gentle snip from behind Mom's ear, where the gray met the stubborn brown. She put it into an envelope that said Ruth in her neat block letters. Leah held the envelope like it was warm. My phone buzzed. Owen again. "Are we still getting pizza?" I typed back, "Yes, after we say goodbye to Grandma with the nice lady." He answered with a thumbs up, and then, a second later, sent a photo of 2 Lego figures standing on a shoebox. One had a cape, the other had a tiny square printed to look like a piece of paper. I didn't ask. "Do you want me to make calls?" Leah said. "Aunt Carol, probably Mrs. Duplessis. She'll spread the word to the building." "Yeah," I said. "I'll call the lawyer, and the bank, and—" The list unfurled in my head like a receipt that never tears off where you want it to. Angela said, "Slowly, one at a time. People don't need to know right this minute to make it real." She put a hand on Leah's shoulder and another on my arm briefly, grounding us both. "You can cry here," she added. "You can also not cry. Nothing you do insults her." Leah nodded, and then surprised herself by laughing, one short, wet sound. "Mrs. Duplessis will cry enough for everyone," she said, and Angela smiled without making it a joke. The funeral home attendants arrived, 2 men in dark suits whose haircuts looked like they'd been practiced. They spoke softly and directly, one to Leah, one to me, and we both appreciated being treated as if our sentences reached the ends we intended. They told us each step before they did it, which felt like decency disguised as procedure. We stepped out of the bedroom while they moved. Leah closed her eyes and pressed her hands flat together under her chin in a posture I'd only ever seen in paintings. The hallway held onto the scent of lemon oil and the faint trace of Mom's perfume. When they were ready, they asked if we wanted to walk with them to the elevator, then remembered and corrected themselves. "Stairs," one said. "We'll take our time." We followed. Neighbors opened doors and said kind things. Mrs. Duplessis, hair wrapped in a floral scarf, touched Leah's cheek, and then mine, and then the attendant's elbows, like she was blessing a harvest. "Ruth will be remembered," she said, certainty in every vowel. She taught my grandson to tie a tie. He used it at prom and at his interview, and when he told me he's moving to Dallas. "Thank you," Leah said. The word looked too small in her mouth. She said it again anyway. On the landing below, someone had set a box of paperback novels with a sign that said free. Leah's eyes flicked to the top title on instinct. "We have that one," she whispered. And then the five of us reached the front door, and the attendants did their careful work with the car. And then our mother was gone from the building the way the sea takes something it doesn't return. Back upstairs, the apartment felt like a hotel room you check out of emotionally before you turn in the key physically. Angela stayed long enough to make sure we drank water and ate a banana each. "Text me when you're ready to talk logistics," she said, tapping the chart. "I'll liaise with Gordon & Sons. You don't have to repeat yourself 13 times. She hugged Leah. She squeezed my shoulder. Then she left, the door closing with the soft catch of a door that knows its job. We turned to the paperwork because grief throws you a pen and dares you to keep your handwriting neat. Leah and I sat at the kitchen table with the funeral home's form: burial or cremation, religious service or not, obituary or not, open casket or closed. Each checkbox felt like it wanted to be a story. Leah read aloud and then stopped halfway through each sentence, and I finished it, or I didn't. And then we tried again. We debated the obituary photo. Leah wanted the one at the kitchen table, bathrobe over jeans, hand on cards. I wanted the one in the backyard where she's holding a paper plate of watermelon, sun in her hair, teeth pink from the fruit. "She'd hate the bathrobe one for the paper," I said. "She'd hate the watermelon one because she'd say her arms looked soft," Leah said, mimicking our mother's self-deprecating fuss. "She'd hate any photo we picked," I said, which felt more accurate than mean. We agreed on the sunlit one, but made a note to put the bathrobe one on the memory board for the service if we did a service. "Do we do a service?" I asked, my voice smaller. She liked people. She liked specific people, Leah said. She tolerated the rest with charm. "Closed casket," I said gently. "Closed," she agreed. Cremation had been something Mom said in practical tones on practical days, the way she said, "Rinse the jar before you recycle it." We checked the box. Burial plot decisions belonged to the part of our family we didn't know well. Cremation let us make choices that fit the life we actually had, not the one that would have satisfied cousins who would send flowers and forget to follow up. Leah called Aunt Carol. I could hear Aunt Carol through the phone without speaker. "Oh, honey," and the kind of sigh that makes you wonder if lungs can be heirlooms. Leah said the sentences you say on loop until they become airless. She said she'd text details. She said she'd welcome a casserole even though our fridge was the size of a stubborn suitcase. I called Karen at the bank and told her we'd need to move forward on whatever happened next with accounts. She said to take our time and then listed deadlines anyway because time has rules. I left a message for the lawyer. His assistant called back so fast it felt like a magic trick. She used words like "as per" and "execute" and "we can file," and I nodded into the receiver as if nodding could perform paperwork. Then there was the matter of the obituary. Leah opened her laptop. I pulled a spiral notebook from the microwave cart because my brain does better with lines I can scratch through. We tried to write like our mother in 2 paragraphs. Ruth Hart, survived by her children, Leah and Ethan. preceded in death by our father, who would be named too, because not naming him felt like a petty way to win something we didn't need anymore. We listed library volunteer, bingo enthusiast, elementary school reading buddy, soup maker, reliable ride on stormy days, woman who always had mints that tasted like a memory of winter. We argued for 5 minutes about whether to include known for telling the truth kindly, decided that sounded like a lie we were trying to convince ourselves of, and replaced it with remembered for making space at the table. Leah typed. I paced. The air tasted like old coffee and a lemon that had given up. The jewelry box watched from the dresser with that mute attention certain objects have when they've been around long enough to develop an opinion. I stood in the bedroom doorway and looked at it. My chest did that pinch again. I thought of Owen touching the velvet someday with the kind of reverence kids reserve for things you tell them are important. I thought of Leah carrying it in her tote bag on Monday, her breath quick and her jaw set, doing something hard that I would have done clumsier. Ethan, Leah called. How do you spell Mr. Delaney's last name? The 5th grade teacher. She always mentioned him. E, I said, and spelled it, tasting the chalk dust that lived in that man's sweater. We wrote until the words started looking like furniture we were arranging too often. Then we stopped and let the sentences sit, like dough that needed to rest, or it would never rise. I texted the draft to Aunt Carol. She wrote back a string of heart emojis and one correction about a cousin's name we'd misspelled out of muscle memory. Leah posted a short notice in the building's tenant group with the kind of grace that didn't leave room for nosy questions. I went into Mom's room with a laundry basket and started the stupid sacred task of sorting. Not the big sort, just the little one you do when you need movement. I folded the sweater she wore on Tuesdays. I put the good cardigan on a hanger. I pulled a shoebox from under the bed and found 3 birthday cards addressed to no one, unsigned, as if Mom had bought them intending to be prepared and then couldn't bring herself to pretend. On the dresser, under the spot where the box now wasn't, I found a note in her handwriting. Ask Leah about the pearls. Ask Ethan about the cameo. No instructions, no justification, no fairness, no scoreboard. Just 2 names and 2 items and the quiet trust of someone who believed we'd figure it out. I brought the note to the kitchen and set it down between us. Leah looked at it and put the back of her hand over her mouth. She was never good at capital letters, she said, because that was easier to say than the other sentence the note carried. She didn't pick sides, I said. She didn't know how to, Leah said. Or she did and decided not to tell us. We stared at the paper as if more handwriting might appear. It didn't. Leah slid the note into the envelope with the hair. Different box, she said softly. This one's mine, but not the kind people fight over. I checked the time. I should get Owen, I said. You want to come or keep going here? I'll stay, she said. I'll call Gordon and Sons back and pick a time tomorrow to meet. Do you want morning or afternoon? Morning, I said. If we wait, I'll second-guess the universe. Morning, she said, typing it into a text. The calendar on the wall had yesterday's date circled in green and 2 sticky notes overlapping today that read, Call Angela and check scripts. Leah peeled them off and stuck them to the inside of the cupboard like respect. On my way to the door, I paused in the bedroom again. I didn't open the jewelry box. I didn't touch it. I just let it sit in my line of sight for 3 breaths. On the 3rd one, I looked away first, like the box had won a staring contest, and I felt weirdly grateful for that. The evening had started to think about itself by the time I got to Owen's mom's place. He met me on the porch with his backpack half open and a paper crown on his head, the kind kindergartners make, except he's 10 and he's stubborn about keeping things from when he was little because they feel like proof he's lived long enough to have a museum. "You look tired," he said. "I am," I said. "I'm also hungry." "Pizza," he said, like a password. "Pizza," I confirmed. In the car, he talked about the Lego fort and how Liam's dog had stolen a piece and they had to bribe the dog with salami. At a red light, he went quiet. "Is Grandma okay?" "She's not in pain anymore," I said. The sentence tasted like paper. "She died this afternoon. Angela was with us. It was gentle." He nodded, face serious in a way that makes me ache. "Can we still tell her about the fort?" "Yeah," I said. "We'll tell her in the way people do after. It counts." He looked out the window for a while, counting something only he could see. "Can I have the Lego guy with the cape?" he asked suddenly. "From the fort," I said. "Why?" "I want to put it on the dresser next to the box that has the fancy pin," he said, "so Grandma knows I'll guard it." I swallowed around a single, sharp thought. That's a good idea. At the pizza place, the guy behind the counter knew my name because grief has a way of making you obvious. We ordered a half pepperoni, half plain, because that's the compromise that keeps the peace in my house. Owen asked for a cup for the soda machine. I said yes and made him fill it with mostly water, which felt like a small, unnecessary rule to enforce and somehow right anyway. We took the box upstairs. The stairs felt like a workout I didn't sign up for. Leah had put away the paperwork and wiped the table. She looked spent, the kind of spent that has sentences it can't finish on the face. "Gordon and Sons," she said, pointing to a note by the phone. 9 tomorrow. They'll bring the forms. We can bring the photo." "Okay," I said, setting the pizza down. Owen set the Lego guy beside the jewelry box with ceremony that made me choke up more than the afternoon had. Leah saw it and blinked fast, then touched the tiny plastic cape with one finger. We ate on paper plates because the sink already had bowls soaking, and the thought of scrubbing the ring of oatmeal felt like climbing a wet hill. Owen told Leah about the dog-eating salami. She laughed in a small, real way. He asked if he could sleep over at Grandma's house tonight. Leah looked at me. I looked at Angela's empty chair, and then I said, "You can, but we'll put the mattress on the floor next to my bed." He nodded, like I'd just offered him a ticket to orbit. After dinner, Leah and I stood in the doorway of the bedroom while Owen lined up 2 pillows, precisely like a runway. The jewelry box caught the lamplight and gave nothing back. Leah said, "Tomorrow, after the funeral home, we should go to my house and put the safe back together. I don't want you to think I'm sneaking anything." "I don't," I said, and was surprised to hear my own honesty. "I did. I don't now." She nodded. "I'll bring the pearls to the service," she said. "Not to wear, to sit near us." "And the cameo can come home with me after," I ventured, heart stuttering a bit. "After," she said, "when we can both hold it without making it carry our fight." Owen tugged my sleeve. "Can we watch the baseball game?" he asked, meaning any game, meaning a sound that fills the air with something that isn't our thoughts. I turned the TV on low. The announcer's voice flowed like a lazy river through the apartment. Leah gathered her bag. At the door, she hesitated. "I'll be back early," she said. "Do you need anything?" "Just you," I said, and it came out easier than I expected. "And thank you. For the safe. For showing me." She smiled tiredly. "Thank you for not taking the box," she said, and the two of us laughed at the shape of that sentence until it felt less like an accusation and more like a joke we were allowed to make. After she left, Owen fell asleep with his hand under his cheek and his foot sticking out from the blanket at a stubborn angle that promised a cramp in the future. I sat in the chair by the dresser with the box and the Lego figure and the envelope with Mom's hair. I opened the notebook. Without thinking too hard, I wrote, "Ask Leah about the pearls. Ask Ethan about the cameo." I wrote it twice. I needed to see it in my handwriting too, to trick some part of me into believing it had always been this simple. The night stood still in the windows. The building settled. Somewhere down the hall, someone dropped a spoon. I turned the TV sound down until it was a murmur and closed my eyes for a second too long. When I opened them, the clock on the microwave said 11:12. The box hadn't moved. Owen murmured something about a dragon guarding a fort. I stood, stretched, felt the small pops my back makes now like bubble wrap underfoot. I picked up my phone. There was a text from Tom. "With you tomorrow, carrying coffee." There was a text from Aunt Carol. "I found a picture of your mother at 16 in a dress she hated. I'll bring it." There was a message from Karen at the bank. "We located a reference to the old Lakeview branch box. Records request in process." I typed back 3 separate thank yous because I couldn't think of a way to put them into one sentence without making it sound like I was copy-pasting gratitude. Then, I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark with the box and the Lego cape catching what little light came from the hallway. I whispered, "It's safe," to a room that knew I meant more than the object. The room didn't argue with me. For once, my head didn't either. Morning found the apartment in that strange hush that comes after a night of not sleeping. Not insomnia exactly, more like the body holding a vigil the mind didn't authorize. I woke before the alarm, before Owen stirred, before the hallway began its usual ritual of pipes, footsteps, and somebody's radio playing the same morning show with the same jokes about traffic that never change. The jewelry box was where we left it, on the dresser, Lego figures standing guard, the envelope tucked beside like a tiny messenger, waiting for further instructions. The carpet under my feet felt cold in a way that wasn't about temperature. I sat up slowly, careful not to wake Owen, and stared at my own reflection in the dark TV screen across the room. I looked like someone who had walked through the evening without touching the floor. Leah texted at 7. "Leaving now. Don't make coffee. I'm bringing the good kind." I replied, "We don't deserve the good kind, but thank you." She sent back a single eye roll emoji, which was how we said "I love you" without saying it today. Angela knocked at 7:30 with the funeral home paperwork already half highlighted. "They'll be here by 9, she said, voice gentle, hair still damp from a quick shower. "You two eat. Drink something. I'll field the door." Leah came in behind her, carrying a cardboard drink holder with 3 cups and a paper bag. She looked like someone who had cried exactly long enough to let her face make peace with it. She handed me a coffee, handed Angela another, then sat at the table and opened the bag. "Bagels," she said. "I didn't know what kind, so I got all the kinds." There were at least 8. None of us had the appetite for 8, but we each took one anyway. Sometimes abundance is the only apology the morning knows how to offer. Owen shuffled out with his blanket around his shoulders like a cape. "Grandma Day?" he asked, eyes still half dreaming. "Grandma Day," I said. He nodded solemnly. Kids don't need euphemisms. They know the geometry of grief intuitively. They just don't narrate it. Leah gave him her extra cream cheese packet, and he looked like he'd won a raffle. We ate quietly, not avoidant silence, just the kind where every movement is considered, steady, respectful of something larger in the room than speech. At 8:45, the funeral home car pulled up outside. Same 2 attendants, same careful steps, same respectful physics to every gesture. The building manager let them in without being asked. News had traveled the way news always does in places with thin walls and thick loyalties. We didn't follow this time. The attendants nodded to us in that way that says, "You've already done the hard part." Angela placed a hand on Leah's back. I kept mine on the table edge, grounding myself against the wood grain, counting each swirl like it was a pulse. When the door closed, the apartment didn't feel emptier. It felt cleaner, like a held breath, finally released. Leah exhaled so deeply her shoulders dropped 2 full inches. "I think we should go to the funeral home now," she said. "Set the arrangements while we're still in today." "Today," I agreed. "If we wait, it'll get harder, or feel unreal." Owen looked between us. "Can I come?" "Yes," I said immediately. "No," Leah said at the same time. We looked at each other. Leah softened. "It's not that you can't, buddy. It's just, there will be a lot of papers and decisions, and it might be boring, or weird." Owen thought for a long moment. "I want to stay with Grandma's blanket," he said. "The big blue one." "The big blue one it is," I said. Angela volunteered to stay with him. She did it without offering like charity. She did it like this is also part of the job of community. "Call me if anything changes," I told her. She tipped her head. "I always do." The funeral home smelled like oak and quiet. Not flowers, not bleach, just quiet. The receptionist recognized Mom's name immediately, which somehow both hurt and comforted. The world knew her absence already. We sat with a director named Stephen, who had the kind of listening face that made you want to confess things you hadn't told people who loved you more. He asked the questions, and we answered them like a team who had trained for this very sad sport. Photo. We handed him the sunshine watermelon one. Obituary wording. Leah read it aloud, voice steady except on the part about the library. Stephen nodded, typing as if transcribing a hymn. Cremation. Yes. Service. Small, community room, Friday afternoon. Music. None. Silence was enough. Silence would honor her more honestly than hymns she didn't like. Flowers. Simple. Not a jungle, not a spectacle. Whatever was seasonal and not overly pink. Guest book. Sure. People like to sign something to feel useful. Memory table. Yes. The bathrobe photo would go there. "Would you like to bring any meaningful personal items to place near the memory table?" Stephen asked gently. Leah and I looked at each other. We both knew. The jewelry box. But not opened, not displayed, not explained, just present. Something like a heartbeat that doesn't need translation. We brought the box back to Leah's house afterward, because the safe was there, and because